In the movie Glass, a clever villain goes to a prison to make his own bad guy story. They don't know that the man with many personalities is even more dangerous than he seems. The movie begins with two teenage brothers who attacked a man on the street and filmed it to post on social media. It was all fun to them. But when they got home, they heard someone walk into their home. It was a man in a hood that attacked both of them. David Dunn returned to his store where his son, Joseph, told him he had found the possible location where the horde had kept 4 cheerleaders hostage. He told David that people on social media had stuck with a name for him, the Overseer. David had to get to the horde and rescue the girls. But he had to do it carefully because, according to his son, the police were now looking for him aggressively. The horde acted weird, like he was some psychopath around the girls. When they asked him why he had taken them, he told them it was because they were impure and they hadn't suffered. David had gone for a walk to find the horde and the exact location where the girls were kept so he could rescue them. But he didn't find the horde. And as soon as he was about to leave, the horde walked past. So, he told his son he found him and had confirmed the building where the girls were. He went in to rescue them. The horde's real name was Kevin, and he could take on any personality he wanted. The personality that made him capture the girls was the Beast, a superhuman personality, and he intended to feed on the girls. However, David rescued them, and he had a confrontation with the Beast. They were fighting when Dr. Staple arrived and captured them both. They were taken to a psychiatric hospital where Staple worked. Kevin and David were placed in different rooms. Kevin asked who the man he just fought was, as he was as strong as the Beast. Staple told him the man was who the whole city had been talking about. They were both placed in rooms with security measures according to their weaknesses. Kevin's was light flashes, and David's was water. Staple tried to convince each of them that they suffered from delusions of grandeur and did not have superpowers. She told them that their condition was what made them think they had superpowers, not that they actually had them. One of the cheerleaders who was rescued from the horde's captivity was told by her principal that the monster that abducted her and killed some of her friends had been caught, and her foster family was glad to hear the news. Back at the hospital, a nurse brought food to Kevin, and he used various personalities to try to trick him. But the nurse engaged the light flash. Kevin asked him if the man they brought in with him was ordinary, and told him to tip him off as to what kind of man he was. But the nurse left him curious. Mrs. Price, Elijah Price's mother, was at the hospital to see her son, who had been caught by Staple and heavily sedated. She told him not to let them break him. Joseph went to Ravenhill Memorial, the psychiatric home where his father was held, and he explained to Staple that his father shouldn't be there. Instead of listening, Staple tried to convince him that they were delusional. She said the faster his father accepted that he was no superhero, the faster he'd get out. She warned that if he didn't agree to not being a superhero, he'd be there forever. Casey, one of the cheerleaders who was rescued, visited the memorial and told Staple that superheroes were real and that the Overseer had saved her. Staple wouldn't have it. Casey told her she wanted to speak to them, but Staple told her she was a victim and that speaking to them was not a good idea. However, Casey insisted, and she was finally allowed to meet Kevin. She told Kevin she wanted to talk to Patricia, one of his numerous personalities, one he called his girlfriend. Casey spoke to Kevin and told him to give in to the light, that he was going to die if he didn't. They shared an almost emotional moment, and in that moment, they bonded and shared the same pain. When Casey was leaving, Staple asked if she was going to help her, but she ignored her and went home. The nurses found Elijah out of his room, not knowing how he got out. Since everything looked good, they moved him back inside. Staple told Elijah that she was going to have to run a final procedure on him, something about working on their frontal lobe. The next morning, Staple brought the 3 men into the room and told them they weren't superheroes. She gave them reasons why they thought so. Kevin was confused, David indifferent, and Elijah remained in his wheelchair unmoved, still in the sedated state that he'd been. She went on to give them practical explanations of why they could do the things they claimed they could do. For everything Kevin said he could do, she offered a practical explanation. She asked them, if superheroes were real, why were there 3 of them? Outside the memorial, Joseph, David's son, went to shop for comic books, anything that he could use to prove to Staple that he was not crazy and that superheroes were real. He got one from the villain section, and it was about Kevin. He researched Kevin's parents and delved further to find out more about Kevin's dad. Casey also read a comic book about Kevin back at her house and learned about all the things he could do. Staple left the memorial and went home, while one of the nurses went to check on Elijah. The nurse told him he could drop the heavy flashlight he held on Elijah's paper legs and also asked if he had been getting out of his room. Elijah remained catatonic in his chair, so the nurse thought it was his mind playing games with him. He left as his shift was over and met Daryl just arriving as soon as he got out. Daryl waited to talk to the security man for a while. Elijah escaped his room and went to make research on the Overseer and the Horde. He was impressed by the Horde's powers and went to meet him in his room. Kevin asked how he was able to get out without anyone seeing him, and he explained that he knew how long it would take Daryl to resume duty, and he had a total of 7 minutes to do all he wanted. He told Kevin that if the beast was real, they'd be able to escape the next day. Kevin was confused and didn't believe he had any superpowers anymore, but Elijah told him he shouldn't doubt it. Kevin asked for his name, and he told him it was Mr. Glass. The next morning, Staples saw security footage of Elijah outside his room and performed a procedure on him. Later that night after the procedure, Elijah killed his caregiver and went on to free Kevin. He made Kevin switch personalities till the beast was out. He told the beast that people didn't believe superheroes existed and that there was no better way to introduce himself to the world than to fight the Overseer at the launch of the Osaka Tower, a new skyscraper building. The beast asked why he was in a wheelchair, and he told him that he broke his bones easily and he was born that way. Elijah also tricked David, the Overseer, out of his room over the PA system in the memorial. He told David he was better off saving lives and killing bloodthirsty killers than attacking small criminals in alleys. David asked what if they were not superheroes, and what they had believed all along was a lie. The caregiver that was going to be on the next shift arrived and noticed something was off. When he checked the security feed, he saw that Daryl was in Elijah's room and lying on his bed. Elijah got into new clothes and had the beast kill the caregiver that had found Daryl dead. David was able to break his iron door to escape his room after several attempts. The beast disguised as a doctor wheeled Elijah to the basement where he fought the guards that apprehended them. Mrs. Price, Joseph, and Casey dropped by at the memorial and tried to convince Staple that superheroes were real, but all they had were comic book evidences. While they were trying to convince Staple, she received a warning alert that the men had broken free. She went to check the security footage and found that the rooms were empty, and Daryl was lying dead in one of them. Staple made a call that they had a code 3, and the patients were planning to go to the Osaka Tower where she believed Elijah was going to compromise a chemical facility there while the beast was outside the building lifting a car with security men in it. Staple called the authorities for help as she now had a superhero situation on her hands with Kevin and David fighting in the park. Casey, Joseph, and Mrs. Price also went out to watch them fight. The authorities had arrived, but they were no match for either of them. Staple told Casey that the light wouldn't work on Kevin outside, so she needed her to help calm him down. Kevin wanted to attack David when Elijah told him to throw him inside a tank filled with water, as water was his weakness. He almost died from drowning when he was little. Joseph jumped in and told Kevin that his father died in the train wreck that Elijah caused. Elijah said he was a mastermind and he created superheroes. He told Joseph that if he hadn't blown up the train, his dad wouldn't have died, and he wouldn't have been left alone with his mother, who was the reason why he had become the beast. Kevin thanked him for contributing to making him the beast but wounded him because he manipulated the situation until he was left alone with his mother, who tortured him every day. He pushed David into a tank filled with water and tried to drown him, but he broke the tank, and water was everywhere on the floor. They fought for a while, but David was weak. As soon as Kevin heard the federal siren, he told David they'd finish their fight publicly. As he tried to leave, Casey held him back and told him she wanted to speak with Kevin. She was able to turn the beast into Kevin, and as soon as she turned him, a sniper brutally shot him. David was also made to drown. Joseph went to his father's body and cried profusely, and Mrs. Price mourned the loss of her son, who was now dying from the wounds the beast had inflicted upon him. Staple asked Mrs. Price for a moment with Elijah, and she told him that in comic books, there are always evil secret organizations trying to stop superheroes. But her organization wasn't evil, and they were just trying to maintain balance because for every superhero, there's a villain. She left. Elijah told his mom that he wasn't a mistake and gave up the ghost. Staple deleted all the surveillance footage and told all the staff to keep quiet about the issue to honor their memory. She overheard some teenage boys discussing that a superhero always had a plan. So, she went to confirm if the footage was not downloaded and discovered that the footage was streamed live to a private website. He had never planned to attack the skyscraper. He had outsmarted her organization even in death. The tape was mailed to Casey, Joseph, and Elijah's mother. They, in turn, uploaded it to the internet, and now the whole world would know that superheroes are real, and they would embrace that fact. Don't forget to subscribe as this encourages us to make more videos daily. It also helps with the YouTube algorithm. Please like, share, and subscribe. We love you and we'll see you in the next video.